Mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. Gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families who fear for their lives.
This progressive Christian, who I admittedly would have several different disagreements with, is using the biblical tradition of advocacy for the oppressed and marginalized and low in society that we find in texts like Psalm 74, the prophetic critique, and in the New Testament in Jesus' ministry and the ministry of the apostles, and is making good application to contemporary America by asking the president to have mercy. Again, despite the several disagreements, fair enough. What is the person who is watching that video gonna have to say, though?
Two things, respectfully. This person does not meet the bare minimum requirements outlined in scripture to be a pastor or a bishop or anything like that, okay? It's like she took 1 Timothy and Titus and just punted it out the window.
Fair enough, but I want people to keep two things in mind. The first one is that in church history, there have been female ordinations that happened in the early centuries of the church. The second thing to say is that it is a part of the conservative Christian tradition to ordain women, though that's just not the dominant tradition. And I'm saying all this as a gentle complementarian who would agree with the reading of the pastoral epistles that she gave.
And second of all, under no circumstance whatsoever is the pulpit to ever be used as a political mouthpiece for your woke ideology and propaganda.
So is the pulpit not a place for politics? Or is the pulpit not a place for woke politics? If it's the first one, then you're flatly wrong. In the Old New Testament and in church history, we see part of people's ministry is advocacy for the oppressed, even if that means advocacy for themselves, because they themselves are a part of the religiously oppressed group, like the Jews in exile, like the Christians under persecution. This gets picked up by the Black church in America, and so it is part of the tradition of the Black church to advocate for liberation from the pulpit. If it's the second one, then we need to define the term woke ideology and identify the specific issues in which it contradicts biblical truths. Because advocacy for the marginalized and low to not be marginalized and low in society is a biblical teaching, regardless of whether or not everyone who is low and marginalized would agree with you or is facing the truth of reality. Finally, I'll just say that we need to be a lot more careful and a lot more nuanced about how we navigate theology in light of politics, and I think one of the pervasive problems that we are continuing to have here in the States is the bipartisan politics. It's also creating bipartisan theologies. Whether or not those theologies are biblical and whether or not the comments that come from those theologies are biblical or not, there's often not a lot of nuance and not a lot of both and or two things can be true at the same time. This is a problem and it really needs to get rectified. That said, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below and make sure you follow me for more content like this.